Good morning, and welcome to my stream of Where Did We Come From? Today, I'll be talking from a couple different points of view on theological, science, and a more mixed method between science and theology. My name is Cedric Knopfel, and this is going to be on the origin of mankind. The origin of mankind. Theories of such are that God has created mankind, and from the Bible we understand this that it was all starting and stemming from that of Adam and Eve. And from Adam and Eve we have Cain and Abel, and from Cain and Abel, so on and so on. Here we are. And then we have where we've all evolved from single cell organisms to where we are today, which is more of a scientific approach to the standard of evolution. And finally, for our last argument and perspective of theological ideas is that we did come from evolution, but at the same time, it was also from God who decided to start us all out as single cell organisms and evolving into where we are today. Adam and Eve. From the beginning of the Bible, we have Genesis 2:7, where the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and that man became a living soul. Now, as perceived, the beginning of the Bible starts with God creating the universe, the earth, and on the sixth day, this is where we were able to get Adam, who was created from the sand. And Adam was given dominion over all animals. And to prevent him from becoming lonely in his solitude with the animals and the earth, we were given woman, where she was known as Eve and created from Adam's rib. Now, in the Bible, Adam is said to have lived for up to 930 years in Romans 5:12, and this is due to Adam and Eve consuming the fruit of the forest, well, the forbidden fruit, leading in their punishment, which led to their deaths. But it is perceived in the Bible on multiple different accounts of are they to die immediately from eating the fruit, or is it that they begin dying and that their death does not come until it has been served as punishment over time. Now, there's been multiple accords throughout the Bible of different people, such as Jesus, where he goes back to the confirmation of Adam and Eve, and his heritage is actually explained that it's his lineage where he's related to Adam. On many occasions, we also have a lot of other big name people in the Bible who refer to the Adam and Eve on many different accounts, and how Adam and Eve are a lot of the base fundamentals of what we lead our lives based upon. So here's where we go to our involvement upon earth. Every aspect of our lives thus far can be linked to Adam and Eve if you look closely enough, or if you leave it to Bible interpretation. The creation of mankind or dominion over all earth and animals, such as Adam's creation from God, where Adam was given the chance to name all animals and make all discoveries upon the earth, where we still now actually have dominion over the earth, as we can clearly see, and go as far as keeping animals as pets. The holy matrimony of our lives can be traced back to how we have Adam and Eve, and it's to prevent the loneliness at the time, but this is how we've continued life on of man and significant other, we'll go with in this case, so that we have that holy matrimony of love for one another. And then we have the world's introduction and dance with sin, which is from Eve eating the apple and introducing us to life's glorious wonders of death and despair, which is where we are now and why we have to seek forgiveness for our sins. And then we have death from Adam. Because of the sins of Adam and Eve, we have now gained the death upon earth, which is what used to be the solitude of the holy garden. which leads us from death through Adam and life through Christ. Because of the fact that we have the holy lineage of Jesus stemming from Adam, that is what has led us to all life on earth, being able to ascend into heaven and live forever. Some of our arguments in this case are, how can we have two people beginning all life? Such as scientifically given, genetically, it's not possible because after a certain amount of time, you get inbreeding, and then certain cells will not allow for such, and then begins sterilization. But in the theological sense of this, it's God's given opportunity for redemption based upon the sins of taking and bearing the fruit of the garden, which we were supposed to leave be. But in another sense, if you look deeper into the Bible, you have Cain descending off into foreign land after killing his brother Abel, and then somewhere along the line gaining a wife, finding civilization, and continuing on. Another argument could be that this is all just simply a story, and in this state, we can say that since the story's been constantly rewritten over the years, we could be misinterpreting it for something else, such as Adam and Eve being rulers over a certain community and not just two individual peoples that are ruling dominion over all earth, that is ruling dominion over their peoples. But another argument against such, which would come from more of a theological point of view, is that all of the different state backs from Luke, Jesus, John, relating back to the history of Adam and Eve, is where it's harder to distinguish it as such, and it can only really be taken as that one certain way. Now, on to our next concept is we got evolution, which in a sense is a new concept if you really think about it, because out of the whole stem of history, we've only really since the 19th century started looking into evolution. And since then, science has really began to kick off, which has allowed us to discover more within Charles Darwin's discovery upon the Galapagos Islands, which is along like birds, how different beaks accompany them in different ways upon the island, of being able to access whether it's fruits of hard shells, they need harder beaks, or if it's flowers that like more of like a hummingbird style would go into and be able to get the nectar out of. And then another aspect of the scientific point of view of evolution is we're able to look at DNA evidence, such as our relation to chimpanzees being close enough to 98.8%. And with that, we're also able to look into family heritage as well. So evolutionary development in Earth is that cells over the vast period of time developing from single cells to our body made of cells. Or the evolution from dinosaur fossil records and carbon dating. Now we got plenty of different plethora of ways in which we're able to use science to look into DNA aspects, which prove that like if you go far enough back, they can't relate to only 1-2 individuals. Science has gone as far back as like 20 years, 20, 30, and in that aspects, they're not able to link it or even to start shrinking down this level of family tree heritage to certain families, such as this of family tree DNA tests, where we see it all the time today where, this families will test to see if like the baby's theirs, and you see there's even TV shows made out of this where we're able to see, you're not the father, blah blah blah. Yeah, funny stuff, good indeed, but really points towards factual evidence based on evolution, not the single two spanning out. So, how we can explain life on Earth. Science is progressing at an increasingly faster rate, and yet to discover such. Now, with how far science has been able to progress, the fact that we're not able to link it back to these two individuals can point towards the fact that life has stemmed from much more than just two people. But on the flip side of it, we do have much further to go with science as well. Science is ever evolving every day, and we're always making new discoveries. So there's the possibility that on the flip side, there's always the what ifs and two sides to every coin of, yeah, we've only gone back this far. But if we go back deeper, there's a chance that we would be able to find that it is a family tree stemming from one specific seed of two. Now, another argument is, if we really evolved from monkeys, why is it that there are still all these other types of monkeys around, and that we are able to become the humans that live under fancy roofs, use technology, and like our tool use is far beyond that of any animal that's ever existed upon Earth? Well, there's a chance that either there's a human life in a theological point of view has always been this, and we've always been around, and it's just that over time we've gained more intelligence along the way. Or it's just a matter of the span of evolution in different biomes has affected how certain types of monkeys will evolve faster than others, and that we're just the types of monkeys that were able to evolve fastest to where we are today, resulting in slower evolution of all others, or even so much as stagnantly stopping where the evolution has been able to go with those other kinds of animals. Now, the other idea of it is that natural selection is eradication of life, not the creation of new. If survival of the fittest was the way that evolution is indicated, then life should be boiling down to one species. Because in the long-term effects of all of this, eventually we're going to be like, we should have killed off the other species, resulting in just us, of pitting one versus the other over time. But at the same time, we can't test what doesn't happen within the scope of field that we're able to do. If there's a species that is losing the survival of the fittest, there's a chance that maybe they're evolving in a new area that we're not able to see them in, resulting in an entirely new species of that type. And that's why it is that survival of the fittest allows for the creation of new, but we're not able to visually prove it and see it happen. For the evolutionary theology aspect of it all, this is where we can look into it as God has created all, but he also started it from an evolutionary phase where he would rather it be cells and not just man from the start, or cells to biological creatures. This is where it shows that we have growth over time rather than one perfect being that God has placed upon earth and allowed for us to exist. And our ability to scientifically continue while having faith to rely upon allows us to have multiple fronts to understand why it is that God has placed us here. And it's not just simply for faith, but to also have a more deeply rooted understanding of ourselves, whether it's in our faith, physically, because God has given us the chance to have all these physical feelings and attributes about ourselves, and the fact that we all look different, whether it be based off of man, female, skin color, age, height, weight. It's the matter of our scientific ability to see why is that. Is it helping others in different ways, all inclusive, so on. Now, for debatable senses of it, we have, why would God allow for such a scientific evolutionary path opposed to divine creation? Well, there's a chance that he has a twisted sense of humor, and that this God is not one that is here for us. This is a God that wants to simply toy around with different aspects of life, where in reality he threw a whole cesspool of cells together, and from that we spanned off into different routes. There's a chance that even us where we are now wasn't intended that we were supposed to be here, but we won the rat race of the cells that were all jumbled together, leading us to be above all the other species. And in reality, it could have gone any other way, where, let's say, lizards ended up where we are, or like birds, or so on, some other mammal, that they became the smartest species and evolved at the faster rate. But on a different side, it could be a more Calvinistic type of fate where God knew it was going to be us, but he still allowed for it to start this way because it shows that God is watching over us individually, but he wanted us to go through all these different phases of life, which is where it could be a test from God on our time on earth as well. And our will or reliance upon science cloud our judgment and our faith. Will we allow science to overtake the idea that there is a deity that overlooks us and places us here, and that we allow it to cloud our judgment? Or are we going to look past it and acknowledge that God allowed for science to be a part of our daily lives and still be able to acknowledge that he is there and the initiator of all life? And finally, we got, does our evolution hint at our imperfectness upon earth? Does it mean that since we're evolving all the time and God allowed for such, and that we're able to evolve from these cells to where we are now, is it because that on earth we're not perfect, we're ever developing, just as cells and evolution are developing too? So that it's a proof that all we can do is we can build as we're born to the time that we die, and that our life after earth is what really matters. With that, I'm going to leave you with these points, and I'm going to see where you can go from here. Thank you for coming to my talk. Thank you for listening, and I hope that I've opened up some different perspectives, different points of views, and that this will be a fun topic that we can go into more.